Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, and education, all through the lens of the principles self-government. Someone asked me, how can I legally discipline my child? Let's talk about that. In this video, we're going to be talking about what is legal when it comes to child discipline, especially in the United States, where I'm from, and then also what kinds of things we need to consider when we're disciplining our children besides just the law. In all 50 states, a parent can correct their child. They can tell their child they earned a negative consequence. They can help their child get from not calm to calm. They can restrain a child when a child's going to be a danger. They can ground their children so they can take away certain privileges. They can even, in all 50 states at this time, they can even spank their children or use what is called corporal punishment on their children. Now, if you have subscribed to this channel, you know that I do not advocate for spanking or corporal punishment because there are better things to do that actually will have a greater impact on the child than just fear, intimidation, and bullying or power struggling could have. So we're going to talk about some of those things, but first let's just briefly talk about why is that the case? Well, I love the country that I live in. And in the US, parents have always been respected as the primary authority in their child's life. They are the primary stakeholder in the life of that child. They are the one that has the most influence. They give the most to the child. They care the most about all the different areas of development that the child has. They sacrifice the most for the child. They are the ones that the child bonds with, which bonding is a really important foundational thing for that child, that attachment that they develop. They are the ones that are there for all of those things for the child. They help them through their problems. They, of course, financially sustain them as well, but they do the very feeding, even from their bodies at the very time that they're born. So, parents really just give so much. So they've always been respected. And so a long, long time ago, and even up until this day, those parents and that parental authority, that role that parents have, has been honored in the country that I live, so that parents get the discretion of whether they can discipline their children, whether they can teach and correct their children, and they get to determine the way to do that. However, there is a line, isn't there? There's a line in between discipline, teaching and correction, and abuse. So that's an important thing to recognize. So for many years, I did therapeutic treatment care for troubled children. And many of these children were neurodiverse and came from some difficult backgrounds, but most of them had trauma associated with abuse, different forms of abuse that they were dealing with. Those children were taken away from their parents for abuse. Let me tell you what constitutes abuse. If you don't feed your child, that's abuse. You have to feed them 3 meals a day. They need to have adequate calories to sustain their health and growth. If your child's health or growth is stunted because you are not doing your job to feed your child, then your child can be taken away from you. If you cross over boundaries sexually with your children, they'll be taken away from you. If you psychologically and emotionally abuse your child, meaning that you use narcissistic tendencies, you use strategies to get them afraid of other people and not trusting other people and only trusting you, and all these kinds of things that can get in a child's head, may go on for a little while, but there will come a point where that will also be found out. The child will either turn on you or the child will be taken from you, because that will be considered psychological abuse. There are things that you do need to be careful about. Of course, physical abuse. If you are spanking a child, or if you are, putting your hand over a child's mouth because They shouldn't be screaming somewhere or something like that, which these are things that parents could do just because they don't know another way. They don't know what else to do to talk to their child about the issue or to prepare them for the issue. If they end up passing out because they can't breathe because your hand's over their mouth or, turning blue or whatever, people see things like this, your child could get taken away from you, at least temporarily. And you could end up with a record or have to go to court, stuff like that. Those were a lot of the parents that I dealt with who did things. Now, a lot of them were more intentional than what I'm talking about here, but be very careful. And there are some people who could see a parent spanking a child and say, that's abuse. And then you'd have to deal with the different divisions of child protective services, those types of things. Is it really worth that? Well, some parents might say yes, because I care about my child enough and I've got to do something. And the Bible says that I'm supposed to, not spare the rod and that kind of stuff. And by the way, I have videos on this channel about spanking, about what the Bible says about spanking, those types of things. So be sure to watch those because there's some really good insight if you're that type of a parent. And I love dedicated parents, ones who are willing to do the hard things to help their children. That's important. Children do need consistent correction. They need firm and loving parenting. They need all of those things, but it doesn't have to be wrapped in any type of a physical action that happens to the child. It doesn't have to. It's not necessary. For many years, I took in other people's children and I was not able to touch them. They would sometimes even get violent. The only time that I could ever touch them was if I had to restrain them to keep somebody safe. That was it. Otherwise, I couldn't, not for discipline. I would have gotten hauled into court because the child did not technically belong to me. But you know what I found is that you can be very, very successful without having to use any corporal punishment. So that is a really good thing to know, right? So let's talk about other places in the world. There are many countries in the world that have banned corporal punishment. That's important to recognize. Just looking at a quick list here on my phone, in Europe, Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Greece, Iceland, Latvia, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Sweden, and Ukraine. Corporal punishment is outlawed in Africa, Kenya, Congo, Republic of South Sudan, and Albania. Corporal punishment is outlawed. Interestingly, though, it's still happening in a lot of these places. In fact, when I was teaching in Kenya, the people were asking me about corporal punishment. And even people in churches were asking me, high up in churches, they should have known if that's the law. So unless this is really recent, I was there just a few years ago. In Asia, apparently Bulgaria, Croatia, Estonia, Mongolia, Nepal, Romania, and Slovenia, though it's all illegal there. In the Americas, it's all Central and South America, but there are various countries also that say that it is outlawed. And then, of course, there are other islands and countries and other places in the world. So there are countries that outlaw corporal punishment. All the more reason to know something else to do. So we can worry about the law when we think of disciplining our children and, ooh, who's going to get mad at us? Or we can worry about something else. How about we don't spend as much energy worrying about the law as we do worrying about the character and the development of the child? Because that's really what it's about, right? Many parents go to corporal punishment out of anger, out of, vindictiveness, out of power struggle. That should not be how our parenting is done. Good parenting is thoughtful, proactive teaching that builds good character, instills problem-solving skills, matures the child. That's what makes really good parenting. And is there a way to set that up? Absolutely. In fact, that's what this channel is dedicated to. If you've already subscribed to this Teaching Self-Government YouTube channel, then you know that on here I teach skills of self-government, not just for children, but for the parents too. So you can teach your children the 4 basic skills of self-government. You can also teach yourself the 5 teaching styles of self-government, and you would not need to get to a place of corporal punishment again. I know. I've been filmed. I've been to home after home around the world. The BBC made documentaries of our family with troubled children, and they came fighting and angry and tantrums and running away And then after a couple of days that stopped. And after 8 days, they were crying and begging not to leave our house and saying, please don't make us go back to the UK. That is what can happen if your parenting principles and skills are taught to the children and are really, really solid. So there are a lot of skills and principles that I could teach you. I don't feel like in this one video I have time to cover all of them, but I would like to refer you to another video. It's a full-length class that I've put here on this channel called The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. It will talk about self-government and a lot of the skills and principles of self-government that you can use in order to improve your discipline with your children and with yourself. Because when you're self-governed, you teach your children how to discipline themselves and you how to discipline yourself and how to set up a structure so that all of that can happen. Go to the class, The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. I'll see you there.